everyone, 138 MMA here. We're going to break down the UFC Fight Night Rodriguez versus Lemos. We're going to break down this entire card, prelims, main card, main event, the whole thing. But before we get into that, we did have another fight drop off this card. Jailton Almeida is no longer taking on Maxim Grishin. That fight is gone. It sounds like Almeida is now fighting in January against Abdurakhimov, I believe. But either way, that fight is gone. So we're going to break down the entire card in its remainder. If another fight does get added later this week, I will put out a single video breaking down that fight particularly. But I don't think so, considering here it is already Tuesday. So who knows? When I'm recording this, it's Tuesday. You'll probably see this Wednesday. But anyway, we're going to break down the entire card. We're going to break down all of the picks and predictions, as well as the analysis of the fights themselves. If this is your first time here, I hope you enjoy this. If you are returning, hey, toss me a like. I know you already are going to love this video because it's going to be very similar to the rest of my videos. So let's get into the first fight of the night.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, 138 MMA proudly brings to you the hottest picks in the world!
Full transparency, I broke down this fight just a moment ago, realized the video was way too long. It was like 4 minutes. You don't need to waste your time on this fight that much. So we're going to break it down really quick. We have Ramona Pascual. She is 3-2 in her last 5 fights, taking on Tamires Vidal. She is making her UFC debut. She is 5-0 in her last 5 fights, albeit against very low competition. And one of those wins is by disqualification. So for Pascual, she is 0-2 in the UFC, basically on the way out. There is a reason that there's only 2 things here because there's just not much to cover. She's most likely on her way out if she doesn't get this win. She might even get cut if she does get this win. I don't know. Vidal, on the other hand, I don't know why she's even brought into the UFC. She's not very good from what I've seen. Maybe she's great. Maybe she's just really improved since her last fight. I don't think so. But point is, that's what we've got here. Vidal does have decent Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and by decent, I mean decent's like kind of a stretch. It's all right. Not great, not good. I guess decent's fine. She can do kind of a body lock takedown for you if you let her get in really close and provide her zero resistance. And then she can take you down and do that. Otherwise, she can just kind of work stuff from her back or try to get on top of you or whatever. And she's just not very good. But she's winning fights against really bad fighters. So I guess she's better than really bad fighters, if that makes sense. She's not UFC level. Neither of these two are UFC level. So hopefully they don't see this and think I'm a big old jerk. On the other hand, Pascual, decent Muay Thai. It's not good. It's okay, though. Decent. For me, you should just totally pass on this fight. You have no idea. Like, there's no way to know what's going to happen. This is a weird fight. But somebody does have to win. I mean, maybe not. I mean, it could be a draw or a no contest. But most likely, somebody's going to win. And if you're a total degenerate and you have to bet on every fight on the card, pick Pascual. She's the underdog. She's been in the UFC before. She's decent at striking. Yeah, I mean, she's probably the better of the two, I guess. Yeah, I can't find any reason to pick Vidal. She has a win over Eileen Perez recently, but that's simply because she got kneed in the groin and it was a DQ after getting beat the whole fight. So, yeah, no, she's not good. Take Pascual if you're going to just be a total degenerate and bet on every fight on the card. But for me, I would pass if I was you. But you've got my warning. Pascal's the pick. Let's go to the next. Right, so in this next fight, we have a couple of guys coming off of losses in their debut in the UFC. Both guys, their only losses in their career are the current losing streak that they are on. Carlos Candelario, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. For Jake Hadley, he is 4-1. 3-2 means that is a 2-fight losing streak for Candelario. However, the first loss in that was to Victor Altamirano on Dana White's Contender Series. Dana White did not agree with the decision and brought Candelario into the UFC as well as Altamirano. Altamirano has since fought a couple times as well, and Candelario now, this will be his second fight in the UFC. His first one did not go so well. He had a tough ask. They put him in there against Tatsuro Taira, a heck of a prospect. So, you kind of expected him to lose that one. So, not too bad. He did have some moments in that fight. Made a good account of himself for such a big underdog against such a hyped-up prospect. On the Jake Hadley side, his only loss is his first fight in the UFC. He lost to Ilan Nascimento. He was just out-grappled in that fight for most of the fight. He was out-grappled. There were very few moments where Hadley was doing much of anything on the offense, at least from what I saw. It looked like it was pretty one-sided. It was clear at the end who had won that fight. Hadley, also on the Dana White's Contender Series, had come in kind of with a bit of a... It was another controversial bring to the UFC. He did miss weight. Missed weight on the Contender Series, said it was the first time he's ever missed weight, all this good stuff. Dana White said he went out on a limb, brought him in after everybody was mad at him, whatever. Either way, both guys kind of coming in on different circumstances from the Dana White's Contender Series. This is an interesting matchup, and let me tell you why. So, both guys are good grapplers, but different kind of good grapplers. On the Hadley side, he's very much wrestling Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu combo. Candelario, it's similar, but he works it different. Now, for Candelario, if he wants to use his grappling well, he needs to use that aggressive, kind of abrasive style to break down Jake Hadley. Hadley, on the other hand, he's a little slicker, a little smoother on the ground. He's going to want to use his takedowns to start, kind of locking up, different things, rear naked choke, take the back, whatever. Look for the limbs, kind of snatch something up. On Candelario's end, he's going to want to more use his ground and pound to get the better of Hadley on the ground. Now, can he do jiu-jitsu? Yes, he's an MMA fighter. He could do jiu-jitsu. He's in the UFC. He could do jiu-jitsu. But the point is, Candelario, his path to victory on the ground is probably going to be more ground and pound related, whereas Hadley is most likely using that Brazilian jiu-jitsu once his wrestling gets it there. The good news for Hadley is that Candelario does not have very good takedown defense. Now, he does get back up often, but he gets taken down fairly easy. So for Hadley, he's going to be able to bank some rounds, use the takedown to be able to control a lot of minutes of the fight. I do think, even if Candelario is getting back up, every time you're taken down, the judges see that. They say, okay, he's taken down again. He's taken down again. And that's also time that Candelario is not putting out his offense. Because I do think that when it comes to the boxing, although Hadley isn't lost on the feet by any means, Candelario probably has an advantage there. He's a scrappy guy. He's got some KOs. He can go out there and just get into a dogfight with you. And I don't know if Hadley can do that. There are a couple red flags on the Hadley side. The biggest one is after Hadley had missed weight and he did the fight, he won the fight, dude basically straight up cried the rest of the show. Crying to Dana White about this. And I'm talking the puffy little lip there, and everything. Dude was straight bawling, more or less, during that event because he missed weight and he was afraid Dana wasn't going to give him a shot and all this stuff. And man, you got to be able to hold it together because he hasn't even made it into the UFC yet, and he's already crying. I don't know. It gives me a red flag. I just don't know how the pressure is going to keep getting... I don't know how the pressure is going to get to him as he moves up in the rankings. This fight is an interesting one. I do think Hadley should get the win. He's probably the more well-rounded fighter, probably the better fighter overall, but if these odds keep climbing on the Hadley side, if you're going to give me Candelario at plus 275... oh, man, you're really twisting my arm. I don't think Candelario loses this fight 10 out of 10 times. I do think Jake Hadley wins more often than not. I would not parlay him in this one. I don't trust him yet. That loss to Nascimento, it was not a very good one. Hadley's the official pick, so for those of you just looking for the official pick, Hadley's going to be the official pick, but I don't mind the shot on Candelario if those odds keep getting further that way. Right now, this is a pass for me, but that's where I'm at. Let me know what you guys think. If you think Candelario's got a shot, I don't blame you, and I'd love to hear your reasoning. If you don't think he has a shot at all, let me know why. Let me know what you think about Jake Hadley and what you think about how so far he kind of really hasn't shown us a lot. Rough on the Dana White's Contender Series, not being able to make weight. First fight in the UFC didn't go so well. Let me know what you think there, but let's move on to the next fight. We got some good ones coming up. Next up, we have an interesting matchup between Johnny Munoz Jr. and Ludvik Sholinian. Ludvik Sholinian coming in 4-1 in his last 5, 3-2 on the Munoz side. Now, this one is an interesting one to me because one guy is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, and I don't think he has all of the skills, per se, that a guy that's coming in 3-2 in his last 5, Johnny Munoz Jr., does possess. But Munoz just has not been able to put him together in the way that he was originally expected to do in the UFC. Now, 3-2 in his last 5, that is a winning last 5. It's not like he's, coming in 0-5 or 1-4 or something like that. But still, Johnny Munoz Jr. had a high ceiling when he came into the UFC and just has not been able to get close to that. So, for Johnny Munoz, really solid Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. it's slick. Like, if this fight gets to the ground, you would assume that he's going to be able to take over with that jiu-jitsu. Although, he might not be the one to take it there. He may also be the one to take it there. He can get takedowns. Not every Brazilian jiu-jitsu player or, former Brazilian jiu-jitsu player into fighter, not all of them have the takedown skills, because in a lot of jiu-jitsu, you just start on the ground, or you both would want to go to the ground, so it just goes there. For Munoz, he can do it. He can get you to the ground. He also has some decent striking. It's not to the level of his jiu-jitsu, but it's still pretty good, and the volume that he throws kind of does make that striking seem a bit better. On the other hand, we have Ludvik Sholinian, who is a very good wrestler. His wrestling is, I would say, much better than Munoz as far as the wrestling department is concerned. He does lack in the striking. It's a bit rough, but he does throw some power with his punches and kicks, so not bad, but it's not good. It's just kind of like, the wrestling's what he really needs to do. But he does lack volume. He's content to stand there and look at you for moments at a time. I don't like that in a fighter. It's something that stresses me out if I bet on a fighter and they just don't do something. Drives me crazy. But Ludvik Sholinian, he's been getting it done. However, skill for skill, Munoz Jr. should just win this fight, no problem. I don't trust him that much. I don't mind a small bet on, say, Munoz by decision, or not by decision, by submission. Submission. Because if this fight does go to the ground, the guy's got all the tools to get there. His jiu-jitsu is really, really slick. And with the added ability to take the fight to the ground himself, I do like Johnny Munoz in that sense. So the pick is going to be Johnny Munoz Jr. I don't think he's a parlay piece, at least not a very good one. I don't trust that he is going to win this. I just don't trust him to deliver with all the skills that he has. Let me know what you guys think. If we should give him another chance. He's going to deliver. If you guys think so, let me know. I do think Johnny Munoz Jr. is the better fighter. I'm going to pick him in this match, but like I said, I wouldn't be parlaying him. I might take a shot on him with the submission prop, but I have yet to decide. So let me know what you guys think. I'll see you in the next video. We've got Polyana Viana taking on Jinh Frey. Both ladies 2-3 in their last 5 fights. This is another tough one, guys. I don't know what to tell you. There's not a ton early on in this card. In fact, there's less on this card that I really am confident about ever since the Almeida fight got taken off, because, we all know that one was going to be pretty easy to call. But there's just not a lot of super easy ones to pick on this card. So bear with me. I'm doing my best here. I'm going with what I got. So, Polyana Viana, Jinh Frey. Now, this matchup should be an interesting one based on a few things. So, first things first, Viana, she does have a 2-inch height and reach advantage, which is going to be a big deal because we have the better striker on the Jinh Frey side. Jinh Frey does have decent boxing, and the thing I do like most about her is her forward pressure. She'll walk you down with the 1-2. It's something that, for me, is underused in women's MMA. The problem for Jinh Frey, though, is she's a natural atom weight. Now, being a natural atom weight, that means she's going to be undersized against just about everybody she fights. She even fought Kay Hansen earlier in her MMA career, and that is a loss to her, earlier in her UFC career, and that is a loss for her. Kay Hansen was also a natural atom weight. She's also a smaller girl, but she was able to muscle her around. So although Jinh Frey has put on some size to kind of bulk up a little bit to fit this division, she still naturally is that atom weight size, and that is a problem, especially against a girl like Polyana Viana, who is, I don't want to say a bigger girl, because that sounds like I'm saying she's fat, and she's very much not, but she's a larger fighter, I guess. I don't know how to say that. Whatever. You know what I mean. She's going to have a size advantage in this fight, and probably because of that, she'll be the stronger of the two fighters. Now, with that, I also think that the finishing upside is all on the Polyana Viana side. Viana is deadly with her armbar. She can lock up other submissions, but that armbar is slick. She gets it quick. No BS. The problem is, the other side for Jinh Frey doesn't really have any finishing upside. So playing the over or under is really hard in this matchup. It kind of just depends on who you think is going to win. So if you're on the Viana side, yeah, maybe you go Viana by submission. If you're on the Frey side, maybe you go Frey by decision. But anyway, something else that plays into this matchup that's really interesting is Polyana Viana has awful striking defense. She'll just let you hit her in the face. I've seen her just let you hit her in the face. Or not you, specifically you, but other fighters hit her in the face. She doesn't really try to stop it. It's odd. Anyway, So this matchup is basically two fighters who have the counter to the other's success. So, or the other's weakness, I mean. So, Polyana Viana, a big, powerful female at the weight class and has really good submission upside. Okay, she's going up against a smaller, natural atom weight who is much better on the feet than on the ground. Not that Frey's lost on the ground, but you know what I mean. On the other hand, we've got Polyana Viana, lets you punch her straight in the face, doesn't really do much about it, and Jinh Frey, who has decent boxing, good forward pressure. This matchup to me is very down the middle. If I have to pick a pick, I'm going to take the Viana side. Why? Well, because she is the bigger girl, and that does actually play a big role at smaller weight classes sometimes, a little bit more than bigger weight classes. Size does end up making a bit more of a difference. And because of that, because of the finishing upside, I do think obviously she will have more paths to victory. If she can lock up an armbar, that'd be obviously a clear-cut win. If this goes to decision, obviously Frey should get the win. But then again, who knows? Maybe Viana just decides to take down Jinh Frey and lay on her for 3 rounds. I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe it is. Let me know what you guys think. I'll pick Polyana Viana. I would pass on this one if I was you. But we've got more fights to cover, so matchup here. We've got what has Fight of the Night written all over it. Mario Bautista taking on Benito Lopez. Both guys 4-1 in their last 5 fights. We do have a bit of a substantial reach advantage on one side, and that is the Lopez side. He is 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. That is 4 inches better than the reach that is on Bautista, who is 5'9" with a 69-inch reach. And for those of you who have watched a few of my videos now, you understand when I explain that 4-inch reach advantage means that Benito Lopez has a 4-inch reach, a 4-inch gap where he should be able to hit Bautista, and Bautista cannot hit him. So, Bautista is entering the danger zone 4 inches before Lopez is. And that is important because Benito Lopez, if the speed is and skill is the same, is going to have a 4-inch gap of however much time it takes for Bautista to cover that 4-inch gap. He'll have that much time to react ahead of anything that Bautista does. Now, I don't think that's true that both of them are the exact same skill and both of them have the exact same speed, all that, don't get me wrong. But reach is important at times, especially in the striking. So with both of these guys being pretty darn good strikers, we are probably going to see some striking on the feet. With the Lopez side, he does use that range well. Being 5'10", 73 inch on the reach, he's going to be taller and rangier than a lot of the people that he's going to fight, and that's okay because he's able to use that in a skillful way. Some tall, rangy guys don't know how to use their range, their reach. Lopez does, so that's good. He can work with he has some pretty decent boxing, and he can work that with that range. But something else I like from him is the leg kicks. He throws them in there, and he'll cause damage with his leg kicks, not just throwing them to get a touch, which some guys do. You see more where guys are actually trying to hurt people with the legs now, not just get a touch or a point or whatever you want to call it. But Lopez is throwing those with some power. The problem is he has not fought in like 3 years. So for Lopez, I don't know what we're going to get here. Do we get the same guy we had? Do we have an improved version of what we had? Or do we have a guy that has diminished from where he was prior? Those are the 3 options. I have no clue. On the other side, we have Bautista, who we do have a pretty good sample size of his recent competition. That is good. He does have really, really nice boxing. He throws with some serious power, puts heat on everything, and he does have good grappling when he does need to get it to the ground. In this matchup, it's another hard one to call for the simple fact that we don't know about this layoff. Now, I know there's some of you who are thinking like, oh, another hard one to pick. This one is hard because of the layoff. If there was no layoff here, we'd have a better idea of what Benito Lopez we are going to see. We don't know. I'm going to take the Bautista side. Not a major parlay piece. I don't mind throwing him in your like juiced up, big full card parlay. I don't mind that. And I will pick Bautista. But we don't know. Maybe Lopez shows up and he's improved drastically from where he was 3 years ago because he's been spending this time to work on his game, work on his craft. Or maybe he hasn't. But I'd like to hear what you guys have to say. And we'll just go ahead and move right along to the next one. Here it is. The first pick on the card that I can actually feel really good about. We have Miranda Maverick. She's coming in 3-2 in her last 5 fights. She's taking on Shanna Young, who's 2-3 in her last 5 fights. Now, in this one here, we do have a height disadvantage on the Maverick side. She's only 5'3" against the 5'7" Shanna Young. Now, for Shanna Young, I'm going to start with her. When I say decent striking, I'm kind of reaching a little bit here. her striking, she has that karate background, and the striking, it just hasn't really translated to the cage. I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt on this one just because of the reach, or the height advantage, I guess. The reach is pretty close, but the height advantage, because of the height advantage, she'll be able to use that leg reach that she likely has. The UFC doesn't show that on everything, on all their stuff, and they're just Tapology. So anyway, she may have a slight advantage when it comes to using the long range and the legs. I'm reaching here because realistically, Miranda Maverick is going to beat Shanna Young pretty easily, but I'm going to at least give you a fair breakdown of Shanna Young. She also does have not so good takedown defense. Like, she'll get taken down by most people that are trying to take her down. So, however, I want to point out, I did pick Shanna Young to beat Gina Mazzani. I might have been the only person to do it, but she cashed for me, dang it. The reason I picked that, because Gina Mazzani has just aged herself out of the division. It's fine. She's not a bad fighter. She wasn't a bad fighter, but age catches up to all of us. Shanna Young being young enough to weather that early storm and then take over, I did pick Shanna Young there. So she has some upside in some matchups. It's not this one. Miranda Maverick, on the other hand, she might be the shorter fighter, but she does have a really good cage push. And if she can get Shanna Young up against the cage, she will bank minutes that way, land some damage there if she wishes to do so. She also has solid top pressure. Once she takes this to the ground, which we know that she can because Shanna Young does not have the greatest takedown defense. Because of that, Miranda Maverick is going to be able to get to the ground if she wants to. And she'll be able to put that pressure down on her, work the ground and pound, possibly seek another submission. These two did fight once before. It was, I believe it was like an exhibition bout. I could be wrong about that, but I believe it's an exhibition bout. Anyway, Miranda Maverick choked her out in like no time flat. It was really quick in the first round. Probably a similar outcome here, but maybe not. Maybe Shanna Young just hangs in there a little bit longer, does kind of what she did against Mazzani, where she can kind of, outlast an early storm. I don't think so, but maybe she can, but I don't think so. Miranda Maverick should be able to get it done. She is the stronger fighter. She is built like a brick house, if you will. And she also has some decent power when she throws. Her punches are not great. They're not like not crisp or smooth or anything like that, but she does have power when she hits you. So if she gets you up against that cage push and starts working elbows on you, yeah, you're gonna feel that. If she throws a punch at you, especially with the height disadvantage, I mean, you're probably gonna be able to get out of the way. But if it does land, you're gonna feel it. She's just a strong girl. But the point is, Miranda Maverick's probably gonna bully her way through this fight pretty quickly or pretty easily. Whether she gets it done early or not, yet to be determined. But, I mean, you could probably parlay Miranda Maverick with anything. I mean, I don't see her losing short of anything freak happening. Short of, we've seen it. Blowing out a knee, breaking a leg, things like that. Short of something like that, I don't see Miranda Maverick losing this fight. She's already beaten Shanna Young very easily once before. So, the pick is easy. Miranda Maverick. Let me know if you think I'm crazy, but I sure don't think you do. We'll move on to the next one. We got some good ones. We've got a matchup that I do believe is a bit closer than the odds might suggest, at least at this point. We have Shayilan Nuerdanbieke coming in 4-1 in his last 5 fights, taking on Darrick Minner, who is 2-3 in his last 5. Now, for these two guys, both are primarily grapplers. Nuerdanbieke does have that good wrestling foundation. Wrestling is going to be his biggest path to victory in most of his fights. He does average, I believe, 3 takedowns per 15 minutes, which is 1 per round in a 3-round fight. Once he gets you down, then he's got you. He doesn't have the best takedown accuracy, and that's because he does have to throw a lot of takedowns to get you there. But once he does get you there, he usually is able to use that wrestling to control you from the top position and do what he wants to from there. Now, he also is a very powerful fighter. Lacks the volume to really be a good striker, so I won't put that there at all. But he is powerful when he does throw his hands. So for that, I will say Nuerdanbieke is not lost on the feet, but we do have that issue. Both guys actually struggle from a bit of a cardio issue here. Now, I don't think it's necessarily because they have poor cardio. I think it's, well, I don't think so anyway, but especially on the Darrick Minner side, that you push a pace that is a little bit higher than you can sustain, even if your cardio is pretty good, typically from just just general cardio, there's a pace at which you just can't keep up. No matter, your human body cannot keep up. Darrick Minner likes to push a good pace with the grappling, especially, and that grappling is what'll do that to you. Same thing on the other side for Nuerdanbieke. He's shooting all these takedowns. When he's shooting all those takedowns, I mean, that's eating at his gas tank. Even if he does have good cardio, you're going to look like you've got bad cardio come late in the fight because you just gas yourself out using all that grappling. Because grappling does eat up your cardio a lot more than striking. But let's get into the Darrick Minner side a little bit. Darrick Minner, his striking, it's all right. Not the best. His volume is better than Nuerdanbieke, so he does have that. If he does use some volume on the feet, he might have some success there. Both of these guys probably want it to go to the ground, though. And here's the thing. Darrick Minner is a choke master. Now, like, I think all but 2 of his finishing wins, which might even be all but 2 of his wins, are by some form of a choke. The guy, he's got them choking arms, all right? When he gets a hold of your neck, he's putting you down. Not every time, but a lot of the time. And he's come close in some other fights as well. I will cover that in just a moment. He does have really good grappling. His takedowns are not bad. He can get you down. It's not like he probably doesn't have the prettiest takedown, but it's effective for what he uses it for. And once he gets you there, his grappling is very solid, and he can choke you out. He does have submissions over some pretty darn good grapplers. So one to note is a guy by the name of Terrence McKinney, who you're probably familiar with, who's actually a pretty big, decent prospect in the UFC. Darrick Minner choked him out in less than 30 seconds, I think. Maybe less than a minute for sure. Might be less than 30 seconds. It was pretty quick. McKinney shot him for a takedown, much like Nuerdanbieke is likely to do. Got himself snatched up in a choke, and out he goes. So for Darrick Minner, those chokes are his best path to victory in just about every fight. And that's not necessarily because he doesn't have other skills. It's just because he's so darn good with a choke. However, he also does get finished, whether it's by choke or other submission or pounded out for the TKO. He's a kill or be killed style of fighter, and that's okay. Where it's worked for him so far, it's got him to the dance, so he's going to keep doing that. There's nothing anybody can tell him to change that. He's quick in the scrambles, so if Nuerdanbieke does get this to the ground, Minner creates some space. Those scrambles are a good opportunity for Minner to take top position, go for a choke, which he probably will. We all know that's what he's looking for. Something like that. The biggest problem on the Darrick Minner side. Okay, before I say the biggest problem, I want to point out something. So, I must admit, Darrick Minner is a training partner of one of my coworkers. He's a buddy of mine, good dude. Not Darrick Minner. I don't know Darrick Minner very well, or hardly at all. But my coworker, good friends with Darrick Minner. They train together. So he's going to be very annoyed when I say Darrick Minner's fight IQ is what costs him fights. The reason why, okay, he was able to land some punches, and he was able to strike pretty well against Ryan Hall, although Minner's striking isn't great. Ryan Hall's is neither. He was able to strike not too bad against him at times. He was able to push a pace on him at one point and land some decent shots, but then he shoots a takedown. Because why? Well, I don't know. His fight IQ sometimes it just falls out the window. It's like he's driving down the road and he's like, yeah, I don't need this, and just chucks it out the window like it's litter. It's crazy. Another one, the Darren Elkins fight. Darrick Minner had that fight won. The ref was ready to jump in and stop that had he just kept throwing the ground and pound on. He had him dead to rights right there. The ref was just waiting for a moment to jump in and step to give another reason to call the fight. Darrick Minner had to land a couple more strikes. Instead, what does he do? No, I want to be the first person to submit Darren Elkins, so I'm going to try and submit him. Or I don't know if he's the first person to, whatever. Somebody else just did recently. But anyway, he wanted to get the submission on Darren Elkins. Dude, what are you doing? That's 2 fights that you had a real chance to win there, and then your fight IQ messed it up. So I hope he doesn't show this to Darrick Minner. He's going to think I'm an asshole. He's going to want to fight me and probably kick my ass because he's a much better fighter than I am. Let's put it that way. Darrick Minner, though, the fight IQ gets in the way. And if he can just get that to be focused on win, not how you win, just win the fight, the guy has a lot more chances to get victories in the UFC at the UFC level, especially against a guy who is going to want to take you down. When in those takedowns, Darrick Minner is very dangerous. So for me, when you've got Darrick Minner at a plus 170 underdog, I think it's worth a small shot. So I'm going to take Darrick Minner here. I'm also biased. Like I said, he trains with one of my coworkers, a good buddy of mine. That's probably clouding my judgment some. But I do think Darrick Minner's got a real path to victory here, and at plus 170, I think he's worth a small shot at this one. So for me, I'm taking Darrick Minner. If you think I'm crazy, let me know, because I could be. I'd love to hear your opinion. This is a fight that it's hard for me to look at just completely, objectively, no bias whatsoever, because like I said, coworker, stuff like that. But Yeah, I'll take Darrick Minner. So. Okay, getting into this matchup, this is probably the matchup that I'm most excited to see play out for a couple of reasons, which I'll, of course, get into here in a moment. But this matchup specifically is going to answer a lot of questions that a lot of us don't know we had, but we do. So we do have Grant Dawson coming in 4-0-1. That extra one there is a draw. And then we have Mark Madsen on the other side coming in 5-0. So both guys undefeated in their last 5 fights. Both guys are strong wrestlers, but different style of wrestlers. And this is what makes me really interested to see how this goes. So a lot of people look at, you'd say, okay, Mark Madsen is a silver medalist in the Olympic Games in 2016 in Greco-Roman wrestling. They hear that and they say, okay, he's a good wrestler. Yes, but Greco-Roman wrestling is very different from the folk style wrestling that Grant Dawson is familiar with. Now, let me explain for any of those of you who aren't up on the different kinds of wrestling. For those of you that are, sorry, but you'll get my super brief introductory level explanation of this. Now, folk style wrestling is typically what you're going to see at most high schools, probably all high schools. I've never seen a high school that didn't have folk style, but folk style wrestling is what you're going to see at least in the United States at like your standard high school level. You'll see standard takedowns like your single and double legs. You're going to get those type of things. You're not going to get that from Greco-Roman. Why is that? Well, Greco-Roman, you don't even use the legs. You don't grab the legs for a takedown. Everything's upper body. A lot of like clinched, like wrestling style clinch takedowns, throws like that, things of that nature. A lot of times in a Greco-Roman matchup, you're going to see the guys like, they start off and then they just kind of, okay, and they basically clinch up because, well, you have to do anything. So for Greco-Roman wrestling, it's a lot of upper body, kind of tosses and throws, whereas folk style wrestling, you're going to see more of the traditional takedowns that you kind of think of when you think of wrestling. So these two are vastly different. So although Mark Madsen does have a silver medal in the Olympics for wrestling, it is nowhere near the same style of wrestling that Grant Dawson is going to bring to the table. And that's the interesting thing for me, is because Grant Dawson's wrestling, the folk style wrestling, the takedowns that he learns from that, things like that, those are going to be more effective takedowns from range. Obviously, he does not want to get into a wrestling clinch against Mark Madsen. He does not want to get pushed up against the cage by Mark Madsen, because Madsen is going to be able to toss him pretty easily using that Greco-Roman. So this is going to be a matchup to see which style of wrestling can win out, because neither guy's really a striker. Yes, I do note that Marco Madsen's striking has improved some. He's still not a good striker. I wouldn't say, oh yeah, Marco Madsen can teach you a whole lot about striking. Yeah, I mean, he's not a bum, but he's not a striker. He's a wrestler. He's a Greco-Roman style wrestler, and he uses it very well in his MMA career so far. On the other side, we got Grant Dawson, who uses, like I said, that folk style wrestling. The dude's a hammer. And I don't mean that in the sense of like he'll knock everybody out, whatever. The dude's just a hammer because he is going to implement his game plan, and it's going to go through. It's going to be, I'm going to take you down. I'm probably going to ground and pound on you. I might choke you out, but I'm just going to bully you with my wrestling, and you're not going to be able to stop it. And guess what? If you try to stop it, I'm going to do it more. I'm going to jam this square peg into that round hole, whether you like it or not. That is his style, and that is what he does very well, and it's worked very well for him. He only has one loss in his entire career. Quite some time ago. I couldn't even tell you the guy who beat him. It was a long time ago, way before his UFC career. On the other side, Marco Madsen, he has never lost in his UFC career, never lost in his MMA career. He is undefeated currently, but he did not spend as much time in the MMA world as Grant Dawson as far as fights. His record is much smaller. He obviously spent a lot of time dedicated to the Olympics. Makes sense. On the Dawson side, his wrestling is only at a high school level. I do not believe he ended up going to college for this wrestling, but he probably could have. The dude can wrestle your shoes right off of you. So the dude's solid there. The problem that Grant Dawson has had, not just the striking, his striking sucks. Like, it's not pretty, but it's the cardio. That one draw on his record is because he just fell off a damn cliff in the third round, and just grit and willpower is what kept him from being finished in that fight in that third round. It was close. Like, there were a few times that I thought it was going to get stopped. I had a pretty big bet on Grant Dawson there, so I'm really happy that it did not. The draw was fine. It got it thrown out. That's cool. But, those cardio concerns scare me. It did look better in his last fight. He did switch camps. He's now training down in Florida. Something that was interesting, it did go to the third round. Grant Dawson did not look like he'd fallen off a cliff in that last fight. So for me, I believe it was Jared Gordon in the last one. For me, Grant Dawson has improved that cardio. Whew, but man, does that scare you. In a fight like this, which is going to be a grappling, kind of a grappling battle between styles of different grappling. Grappling does take more cardio than striking. If you don't know that, it does. It definitely does. So if you have cardio to grapple for 3 5-minute rounds in the UFC, that is very impressive. Most people don't, because a lot of fighters, even if they are grapplers, they're going to spend a lot of time striking to set up this, or if they get the takedown, they're going to have to catch that breath, because it takes a lot to just continuously grapple in the pace that Grant Dawson likes to do, and that is part of why his cardio is a concern. Not necessarily because he doesn't have good cardio, but because of the pace he sets, being that hammer that he is. For the Madsen side, Madsen can control this fight very well if he gets this up against the cage, and realistically, he might be better off just holding this fight up against the cage for minutes at a time, and then whenever resistance comes from Grant Dawson, then start to work a takedown, whether he actually does the trip or the toss or whatever, whether he does the takedown or not, just threaten it. He's going to be able to bank minutes that way for his side. For me, I do really like the Grant Dawson side. Why do I say that? Well, because he's 28 years old against a 38-year-old, and statistically speaking, the 10-year age difference, it's 70-some-odd% that the 10-year younger fighter wins. That's a pretty big reason. I do think that the folk style wrestling does work a bit better than Greco-Roman style wrestling in MMA. I'm going to probably get a few people that are big Greco-Roman guys, and they're going to be really upset with me for saying that, but I just think it works better for MMA. You do have more ways to get the fight to the ground. The legs exist for a reason. Grab a hold of them and take somebody down. So that wrestling that Grant Dawson does, I think, is a better fit for MMA. But Mark Madsen's undefeated for a reason. The guy's no slouch. So for me, I'm going to pick Grant Dawson here. I like him pretty high in this matchup. I've been a fan of his skill that he uses in his wrestling, not his cardio that scares the heck out of me. Picking him in a fight, it scares me. But I do think his style wins fights. I do think Grant Dawson's going to get the win here. I would love to hear your opinion. But let's move on. Next, we got a matchup between a couple of 4-1 guys. We have Nate Maness taking on Tagir Ulanbekov. This matchup is interesting to me, and I think so because Nate Maness is now making his first appearance at 125 pounds, the flyweight division. He's a big dude for the flyweight division. He's 5'10". He's a big dude. He's fought in many other divisions. He's fought bantamweight. He's fought featherweight. He's fought lightweight. He's now down at flyweight. That scares me a bit. But he's going to have a reach advantage over a guy who's used to being the much taller and longer fighter. Tagir Ulanbekov is not a small flyweight. He's 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. That is typically going to be a pretty decent-sized reach advantage over almost nearly all of his opponents. Let's put it that way. He's typically going to be the taller fighter in his matchups. For Ulanbekov at 125, 5'7" is actually really tall. I know for most people, 5'7" is not tall, but at 125 pounds, it's pretty tall. For reference, Nate Maness, 5'10" is a giant, but first off. But in the bantamweight division, for reference, Petr Yan, he's also 5'7". He's a much thicker male than Ulanbekov is. He's also 10 pounds heavier, but he's a much thicker guy. So for Ulanbekov to be 5'7", the same height as Petr Yan, he is 10 pounds lighter, but he is a lot rangier, and he typically is going to have that advantage. Now, this is an interesting thing because now he's going to fight against a guy like Nate Maness, who is going to be taller and longer than him, and Ulanbekov is not used to that. That is going to be a problem for Ulanbekov. So for Nate Maness, I do like that, especially because he does have the better boxing. Don't get me wrong, Ulanbekov's got decent boxing. It's not great, but he works the straight punches in well. Just the 1-2, he works that in really well, and typically because of his reach, he's able to land clean. This fight, this might be negated because good boxer here with some good power. And not only, yes, a 2-inch reach isn't a lot, but he's also 3 inches taller, which if you remember, I believe it was my last video, explaining the difference between punching forward up towards the head of somebody the same height as you and punching to the head of someone taller than you. That's a big reach, but it's a lot harder if you don't know. And it also takes away some of that reach because your arm is its longest straight out, and as you go up, you can't reach as far. So even though it's only a 2-inch reach, the height makes a difference. So for Nate Maness, that boxing is going to be key here. If he can stuff some takedowns, be able to use that boxing to, which he usually has. So his takedown stats are kind of messed up. Nurmagomedov was able to take him down pretty well. Most people have struggled to take Nate Maness down, at least with ease. Nurmagomedov is a special prospect, so I don't think Ulanbekov is quite on that level of takedowns. He does have really good grappling, he does really good wrestling, and he does have those choking arms. So if he gets a hold of you and you're on the ground, those choking arms start slipping right under. Those long, skinny forearms that just slip right under your chin. I just don't know how they do it. It's like, for example, my girlfriend all the time, if we're doing some jiu-jitsu practice or whatever, and her arms, they're long and slender, so she can sneak those things under my chin from, when you don't expect it. Like, I got my chin all in my chest. Just slips right in there. Same thing for Tagir Ulanbekov. The dude has choking arms, so that's a big advantage. When I say choking arms, that's what I mean. They're long, they're slender, and they're like bony little knives. Anyway, but he does have good grappling. He does have good takedowns. Nate Maness is going to be hard to take down. Typically, Nurmagomedov was able to take him down. Nurmagomedov and Ulanbekov do train at the same camp, so there is a chance that there's some secrets being shared here on how to get Nate Maness to the ground. That is a possibility. But in this matchup, I don't think you should place a bet until after the weigh-ins. And the reason I say that, now it sucks because if you're on the Ulanbekov side, you want to get him early while he's still a reasonably playable odds. But for Nate Maness, if he comes into this fight looking pretty good, looking like, okay, on the scale, he doesn't look like he's dying. He looks, he's a little drained. He's on a scale for, a flyweight bout. But if he looks like he could bounce back, Nate Maness has a pretty good shot here, and he's a pretty decent underdog. Last I saw it was like plus 165. I don't mind a shot on Maness, but I would not place it until after the weigh-ins, because if he goes on there looking like death and can barely stand, Ulanbekov is going to be able to take him down and beat on him just because he's just not going to have anything left in the gas tank. It's hard to make an official pick here. Oh, I'm going to say Nate Maness is going to be okay on the scale, and I'm going to take Nate Maness just to pick the dog here. Because let's put it this way. If he does look like death on the scale, and this is not going to be this is not going to be a fight I would bet on if he does look like death, because by the time that rolls around, Ulanbekov is going to be a pretty big favorite. Not something I could place a single on, and I'm not going to parlay him at that late in the week. The odds are just going to be crap. So I'll pick Nate Maness. I don't pick him anymore if he looks like crap on the scale, so just know that. But, if he looks like death on the scale, I'm not taking Maness. But I do like him as the underdog. I do think he's got a real path to victory here. Ulanbekov coming off a loss to Tim Elliott, he can be beaten. I know he has that good wrestling style, that Sambo style, but Nate Maness has a shot. So let me know what you guys think. I probably spent too much time on this fight, but it's another interesting one. Let's move on to some boring fights. Before we get into this matchup, if you've enjoyed this so far, do me a solid, toss a like on this video. This video, it's kind of a weird one. There's not a lot of fights on this card that are super exciting, but I'm delivering you the goods. And if you've enjoyed the way I've done it, if you've enjoyed my presentation, please toss that like. I do appreciate it. It does help the channel, helps this video get to more people. If this is something that you enjoy and you are not yet subscribed, just go ahead and hit subscribe. That way you can see all my videos. You'll know when they're coming out. It's going to help the channel as well. We love it. Watch the videos, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button. It helps me a lot. Plus, it's going to help other people learn what they need to know. We can all make money together. Let's win some bets, all that good stuff. We also can enjoy just talking about fights. Some of you are here just not even to watch or to bet on fights. You're just here to talk about fights. And guess what? You're welcome as well. Subscribe to the channel. Hit like for me. Now let's break down these guys. We have Chase Sherman taking on Josh Parisian. Josh Parisian 3-2 in his last 5 fights. I have no idea how he's managed to pull that off, but he has. 1-4 for Chase Sherman, on the other hand. That's a little bit more reasonable. But both of these guys kind of lower level, bottom tier heavyweights. But both of them do have some upside in the exciting fight department. Both guys got really good volume. Very good volume on Chase Sherman's side, because that guy just keeps throwing punches. No matter how long the fight's going on, he just keeps throwing them. So I do like Chase Sherman's volume a little bit more than I like Parisian's, but Parisian's is still good. So no fault there on either side. Parisian's probably the better grappler here. Obviously, the better boxer is going on the Sherman side. Sherman's just not a good grappler. So he's the better boxer, better grappler. Guys, don't bet on this fight. Unless you just, like I said, if you're a total degenerate, like I said earlier, yeah, bet because that. But for me, I do like Chase Sherman with the boxing. I don't think Parisian's going to take it to the ground. I do know that if it does stay on the feet, Sherman's probably going to be able to win more exchanges. Parisian's no slouch, though. He can hit pretty hard. Yeah, has that good volume, like I said. Should be a fun fight for as long as it lasts. I do like the Sherman side just for the simple fact that I do think it probably ends up being a slugfest and a fun one for as long as it lasts, like I said. Let me know what you guys think. We've got more fights to break down. Don't bet on this unless you're a total degenerate. See you next week. It's already time for the co-main event of the evening. We have Daniel Rodriguez coming in 4-1 in his last 5. Neil Magny 3-2 in his last 5. These guys, both of them, kind of jockeying for that spot to be at the upper echelon of the rankings. Both guys kind of the lower level of the top 15 right now. Both working their way up there. Magny at one point was ranked a bit higher. Just got a setback from Shavkat Rakhmonov. No shame there. The guy's undefeated. No big deal. Daniel Rodriguez getting a little bit of shine from his win over Li Jingliang, even though a lot of people said that it was a robbery. It was a very close fight. I had Li Jingliang winning. I was pretty pissed off when he didn't win because I also had a bet on him. But Daniel Rodriguez did get the win in that, at least on paper. He didn't look terrible, so it's not like it was a complete, absolute robbery. I thought it was a close fight that, Daniel Rodriguez, he got the nod. Okay, great. So he moved up to the rankings. We've got a nice matchup for a couple of guys outside the top 5, but still working their way to the top. In this one, we have Neil Magny, who is just the perennial gatekeeper for the for that top 5. If you can beat Neil Magny, you're going to start fighting some top level guys. If you can't beat Neil Magny, well, guess what? You're going to stay at the bottom of the rankings, and that's okay, or fall out. For Daniel Rodriguez, he's been climbing. The guy doesn't lose very often. He has very few losses in his whole career, and all of them are very close losses. And I think that comes down to a couple of things. Mostly his boxing. For Daniel Rodriguez, he does really good boxing, but primarily the jab. He's content to put that jab out there and just touch you a lot. And it hurts you, don't get me wrong, and he will cause damage with it. But he's able to hit that jab out there, and he is hard to hit himself, so he can stick it and move, keep himself out of range. He works that jab so well to the point that it gave him the win over Li Jingliang when Li Jingliang was throwing power shots at him. So Daniel Rodriguez works the jab really well, hard to hit, but he does have solid boxing all around. It's not just the jab. And he does decent takedown defense, so he can usually stuff a takedown and you can come back with his hands. He also even has a good leg kick. I didn't put it up here because he doesn't use it as often as he should, but he does have a pretty good leg kick when he is using it. So Daniel Rodriguez, primarily a boxer in the UFC, which is strange because usually that's not a very successful thing to do, is just be a boxer, but that's pretty much what he does, and he's done it darn well, and he's done that well throughout his entire MMA career. He does, however, have a reach disadvantage by a substantial margin because he is 6'1", which is not a short guy by any means, but for the welterweight division even. He's 74-inch reach. And now that's where the issue is because he's fighting 6'3", 80-inch reach for Neil Magny. Neil Magny has a long wingspan. He can hit Daniel Rodriguez from a pretty good clip way before Rodriguez can hit Magny. But the thing about Daniel Rodriguez is his jab is deceptively long. And I think it's because of his boxing stance. The way he stands, it makes it so it seems as though his jab, he has more of a reach on his jab than he really does because he's able to kind of lean on that lead leg, shift forward without taking a step. I haven't stepped, but I'm forward farther. And he's able to stick that jab out there a lot farther, and it makes it feel like he's got a better reach. But with that, Neil Magny's still got a big reach advantage on him. Doesn't matter where he's leaning. So Neil Magny also, he's solid everywhere. The guy is, if you think of an all-around fighter in the UFC, somebody who just does everything well, but nothing is like the top tier. Neil Magny's that guy. He does everything well. I wouldn't even say he's a jack of all trades. He's a little bit better than that. Like Neil Magny's pretty darn good at everything. So, but he's not top tier. Like I said, the boxing is going to be in favor of Daniel Rodriguez, but Magny works and strikes well from every different angle. He is a very good minute winner. He can push you up against the cage, work his elbows, work some body shots, take you down, let you back up, take you down, let you back up. Work that with some comfort as well. Take you down and open the open mat. He can get some trips, get you that way. he can strike at range with you. I mean, the guy's got an 80-inch reach. The guy can strike at range with most people in the welterweight division. He is just good everywhere and wins minutes in fights. However, because even though he is that, he will be likely outstruck by Daniel Rodriguez, who is the better boxer. If Magny can take this fight, push up against the cage, take it to the ground, work in the kicks instead of just the boxing, something that happens when Daniel Rodriguez is doing his boxing, that lead leg is susceptible to that leg kick because he's putting weight on it so he can throw that jab with some sting and some zip to it. So for me, I do think Neil Magny has more paths to victory here. The Li Jingliang fight is what gives me pause on the Daniel Rodriguez side. Li Jingliang was able to land shots on Daniel Rodriguez, and being that hard-to-hit boxer that he is, Magny should be able to hit him easier because Magny is a lot longer, rangier guy than pretty much anybody in the division. Usman might have a bit longer reach, but it's not by a lot. If he does, it's not by a lot. So Neil Magny here does have the tools to put it on Daniel Rodriguez, and he does have the fight IQ, I believe, to be able to mix in some of that grappling and win minutes. I'm going to pick Magny here. I like him if I can get him as a dog or even money or, right around there. If he ends up growing to be a big favorite, I'm not gonna place anything there. If anything, 120 is too high for me. I think this one's a really close fight. Pick'em odds are better. I'll take Magny. Anything higher than that, probably not. Daniel Rodriguez has a pretty good chance of winning. He's hard to beat, hard to finish, hard to hit. All those things. Snag one right out from under your nose. Ask Li Jingliang himself. But I'm going to take Neil Magny here for the pick. I do like him here. There's not a lot of spots I like to play on this card, especially with the Almeida fight being gone. Because if you just juiced up Almeida and Maverick together and just put all your money on that, I mean, it's probably as safe as can be. Watch Maverick now screw this up. But just saying, since the Almeida fight got dropped, I don't have a ton of fights that I really, really like from the betting perspective here, but I will take Magny. If I can get him at the right odds, I would take him. So that's my pick. Let me know what you guys think. We got the main event left, and that is it. So let's get to it. For the main event, we have Marina Rodriguez taking on Amanda Lemos. Both ladies 4-1 in their last 5 fights. Both very high-level fighters in this division. Both have interesting paths to victory. So for this fight, I would like to start breaking down Amanda Lemos first. She does have the power in this matchup. She is going to hit harder than Rodriguez. I do think that Amanda Lemos can stop a fight at just about any time with that power. And she does have the better grappling. If she is able to get this to the ground, this world is going to be hers. This matchup should be all hers if she's able to get to the ground and keep it there, especially if she's able to do that in multiple rounds. Obviously, this being the main event, it is a 5-round fight. On the Rodriguez side, she does have really solid boxing. With that, she puts in some pretty decent volume, and she does have strong cardio. So she's able to mix some of the best parts of boxing to put a pace on an opponent. Not in the way that just drains your opponent's cardio, but she's going to pepper you with shots. She's going to move. She's going to stick. She's going to sting. She's going to keep doing that as often as she can while throwing just enough more volume than her opponents to keep winning on the scorecards. She doesn't have a ton of stopping power in the hands, but it's not like it's not like she has pillows for fists. But like I said, the stopping power isn't there. The stopping power is on the Lemos side. This fight scares the crap out of me because I think that Rodriguez wins probably more often than not. Probably about 7 out of 10 times. This fight's going to end up going to the decision, and Rodriguez is going to win. But there are 3 times where Lemos either knocks her out or takes her to the ground and just gets a TKO or even a submission over Rodriguez. Now, I think that all the finishing upside, or not all of, but most of the finishing upside is on the Lemos side. Rodriguez could get it done in later rounds after she's worn down Lemos, but I do think Lemos has the more finishing upside. I don't like a play on this one. Go figure. There's not a lot to bet on this card. It's kind of a rough card. A lot of stuff just... The original main event that we had, I did like that one, Evloev versus Bryce Mitchell. That one I had to play on. You'll have to wait and see because it sounds like they might get matched up down the road in the future. I know right now Bryce Mitchell is supposed to be taking on Ilya Topuria. We'll talk about that one when that time comes up. But I did like the original main event. There just isn't a lot of stuff to go on in this fight. I don't mind throwing Rodriguez in a parlay with, say, Bautista or something where you're kind of like, I don't put a lot on this one, but I like them to win kind of thing. If you're big on Jake Hadley, I'm not super big on Jake Hadley, but if you are, I don't mind the pick. Throw those fighters together. Throw Miranda Maverick in there because she's probably going to win. Like that kind of stuff. I don't mind that. There's no single play for me here. If you are playing it, you could the over if you're on the Rodriguez side, under if you're on the Lemos side. Yeah, I don't like it a ton. I don't like this one a ton. I do think Rodriguez gets to win more often than not. She's going to be my official pick for the video. Let me know what you think. I would not blame you for picking Lemos for the finishing upside, especially over 5 rounds. I just do think that that finishing upside does diminish as the fight goes on, especially against a girl who wins minutes on the feet with her boxing. And after you've been punched in the head enough times over the course of, 10, 15, 20 minutes, it gets a lot harder to finish somebody else, even if those punches aren't the hardest. So let me know what you guys think. This has been an interesting card. It is a card. Let's put it that way. There are some fights I really like on here. Particularly the Madsen versus Dawson fight. I really want to see the different striking or the different wrestling styles clash, and especially with both guys who are more or less undefeated. Both guys undefeated in the UFC. Dawson does have the draw, but it's going to be interesting to see that wrestling matchup. I'm really looking forward to that. So let me know what your favorite fight on the card is, what you're looking forward to the most. Let me know if you think my picks are crazy, and if you've got some better ones, I'd love to hear about it. But let's chat in the comments. I'll be down there responding to all of you. So, yeah, that's it. Let's move on. We've got next week coming up or whatever, and many more fights to come. So, actually, wow, next week, UFC 281, isn't it? There we go. Getting something right here. That's going to be a fun one. I'll have a great video for that. If you haven't seen it already, I'm rambling now, but if you haven't seen it already, check out the video I did with Brandon Beast Mode Meyer. He's going to be making his bare knuckle boxing debut, BKFC debut against Shane Moffitt on November 18th in Omaha, Nebraska. Him and I sat down and we talked about the main event of UFC 281. So if you haven't seen that video, it's on my channel. I'll probably link it in the description or something. But yeah, check that video out. Give you a little preview for the next week. But this is what I've got for this card. I'll see you next week.